How long have you lived in America now?
I've been there for, I think, 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the first move? To New York?
Well, I lived in Portland I'm not counting the Portland years, but I was in Portland for 4 years.
Okay.
Then I moved back for 3. Then I moved to to New York City. Yeah.
Could there be a farther comparison from where you grew up to New York City?
No. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So I was in Hamilton for 16 years.
Right.
So Hamilton and New York are definitely different. But then my parents, when I was 16, moved us up to Harrison, to a tiny little town, 1,800 people, and that's kind of where, that was the greatest contrast.
Right.
So I was sort of home for 10 years.
Okay. What do you think Canadians get wrong about America?
Canadians probably don't understand American politics as good as they would think.
Think they do?
Yeah. Because of they don't understand the cultural stories. I think as well, they think Americans are rude, and there are definitely, there are 51 different countries in the United States. So, the South, for example, I think is like one of the most polite places in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like far exceeding any politeness I've ever experienced in Canada.
Right.
So that's probably, there's probably more of a national cohesion, even though there's differences between Ontario and, say, Alberta.
Right.
And that would probably be some of the more extreme. But there's more of like a federal idea. But Americans are very, if you ask a Texan where he's from, he's not going to say the United States. He's going to say Texas, if he's in Europe, it's like,
right.
So they're big on their state.
Right.
And the unique politics and the unique, cultural philosophies, etc.
Right. What do you think Americans get wrong about Canadians?
That they're polite? They're not.
Yeah, we're low-key mean.
Yeah. I think it's gotten worse, too.
I agree.
I think the Canada that I grew up in the 80s was some forms of polite. But yeah, it's become, you become, I think, impolite when you don't like who you're living next to. And so that's what I see in like places like New York.
Right.
People don't like the other New Yorkers, and so it's kind of hard to have that sort of, it's even harder to love your neighbor, when you're just like, I wish I wasn't sharing a city with you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wish I couldn't hear you between these paper thin walls.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think it's just proximity. I think it's literally multiculturalism. That's like you're not allowed to say that.
Right.
Because multiculturalism is just an assumed doctrine. It's a Christian doctrine, is it? No, it's not. People often say like diversity is our strength.
Right.
That's not a Christian idea. Perhaps.
Right.
What do you mean by
right.
diversity is our strength? Like, it depends on what you mean. But I often hear, pastors say it. It's like diversity is our strength. Well, what do you mean?
Right.
Because when Paul talks about the mystery of the church, what he's saying is it makes no sense in the natural that we should have, unity, that we should love one another. And so that's the miracle and the testimony and to the world is that there's something about Christianity,
right?
Not just a doctrine of diversity.
Right.
That makes us
not
one.
Diversity for diversity's sake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that diversity is our strength. Diversity is our weakness. But what Christ has done, what God has done rather in Christ Jesus, he's broken down the walls that separated us.
Right.
So it's insane. We have Jesus in common, and we've been saved from our sins. So now there's this unexplainable love because the gospel has been received deeply, and now the gospel is given deeply. Now I have a ministry of reconciliation. The world can't say that,
Right.
and it's not. It's diversity is not our strength. Like because we have like in the natural, there's reasons to, for example, if I own a Starbucks. I want everybody to be culturally on the level of my business, my organization.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't care where you come from, but you don't get to think however you think about business. If you come into Starbucks, you wear the apron, you say the things that we say, there has to be a cultural cohesion in every business.
Right.
So diversity is not your strength in business.
Right.
Diversity is not your strength in baseball. I mean, right, you have to define your terms.
Yes.
There's only a certain type of person that you want on your team if you're in the NHL.
Absolutely.
Like it's a total and complete meritocracy.
Yep.
Slow, fat people aren't allowed to play in the NHL.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, well, I guess unless you're a goalie, I suppose.
Or if you carry your weight from the waist down.
Well, totally.
Yeah.
So you have to define these terms.
Yeah.
And so when you ask people to define terms like that, it gets kind of difficult. But yeah, diversity for diversity's sake is not a strength in any facet. Why would it be a facet in the church? It's not.
Yeah.
Like there's so many differences, but that's the miracle of the church, So anyways, I digress, but that's what makes cities hard. Multiculturalism makes cities hard because people aren't necessarily made. And if you don't have Jesus in common, you're just going to be frustrated.
Right.
And that's why cities are, particularly multicultural cities, it's like, it doesn't really work and it's not going to work. It's just an experiment.
Right.
But like Rome fell apart when, as a result of all, of a lack of cultural cohesion.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, many church leaders, myself included, would at times describe what we're leading or how we're building, say, oh man, our church is great. It's young, it's diverse, and it's full of new believers. Those are three problems in what you're saying. Yeah, like maybe we need some churches that are old and have figured out their cultural voice and have some, like, a long runway of faith.
Yeah.
Do you think we undervalue the old believer
For
in the
sure.
church?
Of course. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yes. And the irony is that all these young, cool churches don't have any money.
Right.
It's the old people that are writing the checks.
Right.
Why not have a multi-generational church where you cater out to everybody, and you, but once again, like and I just want to make sure that I'm totally clear. Like I've been a part of a multi-ethnic church.
Yes.
Hillsong, I was a part of Hillsong for about 12 years. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I have an insane amount of friends who are not white Canadians,
Right.
So I'm not saying that, that there's not, what I'm saying is that what is to be celebrated about a multi-ethnic church is the reality that we have Christ in common.
Right.
Not that we adhere to some sort of social doctrine, because left to ourselves without Jesus Christ, there's, these things break down.
Right.
And great countries are countries where people have something in common.
Right.
But the lie of multiculturalism is if we have nothing in common, somehow we'll get on better. It doesn't work.
Right.
So we do have to have something in common.
It's like Tower of Babel all over.
Absolutely.
We can't talk anymore.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to ask people to define their terms. What do you mean? Perhaps in certain scenarios, diversity is your strength, but not, it's not just like a catch-all phrase.
Right.
Yep.
So you guys are in the very early days of planting and pioneering a church. You're an elder and kind of architect alongside with a team of people in Franklin.
Yeah.
When a church gets planted, typically leaders say things like this, like, we're not going to get religious. We're not going to get stuck in our ways. We're not going to be traditional. I think every every organization ever gets traditional really fast.
Yeah.
So how have you decided the things you're going to be traditional about and the things you're going to be dogmatic about?
Right.
And how have you decided to say some of this will be led by the people that the Lord sends us?
Yeah. So we're going to be religious. We're going to be traditional.
Right.
We are like the anti-arc model, essentially. And I'm not saying that. I'm kind of being facetious.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, like we haven't raised any money. We're not going to. You know, we're not following any of the rules of how you should grow, you know, a certain church. You know, like what we're trying to do is create, firstly, a community of people who share the same philosophies,
Right.
that, you know, about church and you know, theology. So we are theologically, we have some philosophies, some theology, and some methodology that we all kind of have in common. We're just like, man, we just want to do church.
Right.
I'm tired of a certain model of church. I'm
Right.
exhausted of it. I want to have some authentic community, but that is around. Yeah. So for example, we recite the Nicene Creed every
Right.
Sunday.
Okay.
We have communion every Sunday.
Yep.
We just do some things that, like, I think that, yeah, I just want that kind of like land us in. We want to be historically Christian Orthodox, and so feel like we have a connection to the past.
Right.
Well, also, you know, I preach dressed like this.
Right.
You know, so I don't need to be relevant. I am relevant. You know what I mean? You know how
Yep.
like there's some Christians who are like, you know,
We got to make it more relevant.
totally.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need to, dude. Like
Yeah.
I'm a normal human being. You know, like relevant is for people who are squares. I'm not a square. I never need to try to be relevant.
Right.
I'm the most relevant person ever. I listen to music. I go to shows, not to try to be, because I am.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like, so that's the type of people that we draw. And if
And
anything,
you're not curious about what you're not curious about.
No,
Like
exactly.
you follow the passions.
yeah, totally. And so, like, I don't need to. Nothing about our church. Everything about our church for people who are already relevant needs to be actually rooted in the past.
Right.
So what a guy like me needs is tradition. I don't need an LED screen.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I don't, I have nothing against LED screens. They look awesome.
Yep.
But you know, so it's just so yeah, I don't know. Like we just have a community of just amazing people, and we're kind of growing it in Franklin. There's so many churches in Franklin, right? You throw a cat in any direction, you hit a church in
Right.
Franklin. But you know, not everybody's wants to,
Right.
you know, worship, or you're not necessarily going to believe what you believe. So yeah, it's been fun.
So do you think, like, it's obviously to be celebrated when someone sees that and resonates with it and they're like, I'm in. Do you think it's also something to celebrate when someone sees it, recognizes it, and says, this is not for me?
Absolutely.
How do you
course.
get to that conclusion early? Because I think a lot of people try to be all things to all people, and then that being nothing to anybody.
Well, because we have a statement of faith with 16 doctrines that we affirm, and then we have 8 distinctives that
Okay.
make our church our church.
Right.
And people will probably, you know, smoke past the 16 statements of faith.
Right.
But when they read through our 8 distinctives,
Right.
they'll be like, oh, okay, this is unique, and it's going to require a certain type of person as well. Like,
You don't need to quote all 8. Could you give me an example?
yeah, for example, we have a distinctive on baptism that we half of us are open to paedo baptism, baptizing kids, and half of us aren't.
Yeah.
But we agree that we're going to give the parents the right to choose, right? Whether they want to baptize their kids, like literally babies, the baptism of babies,
Right.
or not, you know. So because there's a huge Christian tradition, and we want to stay open to those Christian traditions, and so we're going to remain heterodox on that thing,
Right.
and that's going to be a distinctive of our church. And if you choke on that, we're not for you,
Right.
you know. And that's kind of what our church is going to be like,
Right.
you know. So we have one of our distinctives is around women in ministry,
Right.
and so we have a statement on you know what we believe about that. We believe that women can preach, pastor, teach, but under male headship. You know, the government is for dad.
Right.
Ultimately, the buck stops with him. We have it's just a distinctive that we have. You know, we have a can't remember the rest of them, but we have we are going to have a membership. where
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about that. That's pretty compelling.
Yeah, and essentially it's just like
when you say membership, I think a lot of Canadians here are voting. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, so
member
no voting
equals voting.
Yeah, so members
So what
don't
do you
vote.
mean by membership?
Members mean that you agree that you're going to be a part of this church. You become catechized in our church. So like you're not just going to come for 4 weeks is better than no weeks. Okay.
Right.
So, but beyond that, we're going to have some things that if you want to be a member with us and go, man, I'm throwing my lot in with you.
Yeah.
These are the things that we're asking you to go through, and
Right.
then we're going to ask you to have to take on some family responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, like if you're going to be a member, you're going to tithe. We'll only marry members.
Awesome.
We'll only, you want to be pastored? We'll pastor members. You want to be mentored? We'll mentor members.
Yep.
So it's like, I'm going to build with people who want to build with me.
It's awesome.
But like in our churches, many times people want, but they won't give.
Right.
I had a guy reach out to me recently. I want you to mentor me in speaking. Yeah. It's like, okay, got you. So you want to meet with me once a month on a Zoom call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, but you will give nothing.
Right.
So far in all these conversations, there's nothing that he wants to give.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
yes.
No, I'm not there to use people. But a relationship has to have agreements in it.
Yep.
And it has to be reciprocal. And so it's like, like I have a family to feed.
Right.
Like I have a lot, you know what I mean? So, so that's kind of, and then, there's something about agreeing to things, like if I get bent out of shape, this is the process that I will follow in reconciliation. If I'm a member of Holy Saints,
right,
that's what it's going to look like.
Right.
If you want to serve at our church, you have to be a member.
Right.
So, and members hold these ethics.
Right.
Right. So, serving, it will be a privilege.
I love that.
Right. Yeah. It won't be, it is both a responsibility and a privilege.
Right.
But I'm going to know those who labor among us in the Lord, and so I want to have conversations that are front loaded with people.
Love that.
Rather than, getting 2 years down the road with
the
people.
old bait and switch.
Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're not fooling anybody.
Yes.
We're going to be super open about, and I tried to be, I didn't try to be, I tried to go through Catholic rites a couple years ago, just for fun. Cause I wanted to see what was all about.
Yep.
Because I was attending Mass while I was living in Palm Springs, just because I'm literally the most inquisitive person in the world.
Right.
And so I'm just going to it. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. That's interesting. That's not interesting. I like that. I don't like that. And it takes like a year to become a Catholic.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. There's like 70 people on my Zoom, and they were all evangelicals that were wanting to become Catholic. It was incredible. And so there's this nun that was taking us through, Catholic rites.
Wow.
And the whole time she would always play Hillsong music because she loved modern worship. It was really funny. But you had to show up on a Wednesday night on a Zoom call for 2 hours every Wednesday night.
Okay.
And people just like, make me Catholic already. Like, no, you're going to go, this is the door, this is the process. And they catechize people. And we're like just so opposite because it's like, we just need to grow. We need to grow.
Right.
Need the numbers. Need to get them tithing, get them serving, get them caught. There's some things to that I get, and I'm not coming against those certain things, but I was a part of a church in New York where we just got people into the fabric of our church.
Totally.
And then 2-3 years later, we had to address some issues, and then it becomes a huge issue, and you lose tons of people.
Right.
So for me, I think it's safer. It's a safer way to build, and a surer way to build when you have some sort of process. Don't call it. Well, membership is exclusive. Well, Christianity is kind of exclusive.
Of course.
It's like it's what it is. And I think that my bet is that millennials and Gen Z want to be a part of something. I'm betting on it.
Right.
I'm betting that they want to be a part of a club. They want to get a badge.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they want to be a part of a society.
Yeah.
They want to be a part of a gentleman's order. It's like, so my bet is that they're not like the boomers who kind of undressed and rejected all the traditions. My bet, I'm betting on the idea that the millennials and the Gen Zers are not, cast off the restraints types, but they want the institutions and the traditions and all of the rigmarole, and the pomp and circumstance that comes along with it.
Some ceremonial stuff.
Totally.
Yeah. It's interesting as you're talking, I'm thinking about the use of the word fam as it relates to churches. People are like, you're in the room, you're part of the fam.
Yeah.
You're immediately part of the family. You don't know what the family is. You don't know what the family stands for.
Yeah, you're not fam.
And then when we don't get along,
your
family just rejected you,
right?
Or you're leaving the family,
right?
Like it's such heavy stakes to put on it,
yeah.
And so you're actually, the pendulum swing would be, we're never family, but yet the Bible uses brother, sister, family of Christ so much. How did the process you're speaking of is entrance into family, essentially?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're headed. We're only meeting monthly.
Yep.
Right now, we're hoping to get into weekly services in January.
Awesome.
We had one offering.
Yep.
And sadly, we gave it all away.
Okay.
To a pregnancy center.
Okay.
So we're literally morons.
Right.
Yeah. Like Joe Champion was just like, you guys are literally the worst at church planting.
Right.
I'm like,
Thanks, Joe.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So our big thing is that we're going to, we want to be a little bit different and try some things that I think work for our community.
Yeah.
So, we're an experiment just like any other church.
Yeah. More than anyone I know I think I've known you about 15 years.
Yeah.
You love to work with close friends.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people, because, fear of tensions, they go, got to keep life compartmentalized and separate. You do the opposite. It's like, it's a stew. It's like everyone's in there. How do you manage some of those tensions well?
Yeah. So look, I work close with friends because I am a very transparent person that could be taken advantage of very easily. And so, and it's like better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Right.
So I'd rather work with people that I've known my whole life. And it's just, there's just safety there.
Right.
And then, because they're friends, when it comes to hiring and firing, that's going to look completely different because you take care of friends. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
it's not transactional. Yeah.
It's not transactional. Exactly. So, and that's actually good for them. It's a safety for them. Like we're literally, right now we're transitioning, a couple friends, off staff to go and do some other things. And like, it's hurting us financially to do that.
Right.
But that's what friends do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's good for them and it's good for us.
Yeah.
Because the nature of our work, it's just, there's just a lot of unguarded moments.
Right.
And so I'm not going to risk that.
Yeah. So are you, would you still classify yourself as a disciplined person? Because a lot of times, like your work and life and travel and writing, on and on and on, they all kind of intermingle. Mm-hmm. How do you exercise discipline?
Look, so I am probably a discipline-ish person.
Right.
I'm not Richie Wilkerson Jr.
Right.
Like waking up at 4 a.m. every,
Craig Rochelle.
Totally. Yeah. It's not me. I don't want to be that person. I could never, I don't have that drive.
Yeah.
I enjoy Fortnite way too much.
Right.
I believe in time well wasted. So I'm I'm more of a philosopher than I am a utilitarian.
Right.
And you got to know what's good for you. I'm not. So I'm project-based guy.
Right.
So I'm big on giving time to projects, carving out time for projects, and then that project informing my time for that season, and then I'm on to another project. And does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of but I have some routines. I mean, like when I'm home and I'm not traveling, I'm in the gym.
Yep.
Every day about the same time. I wake up about the same time. I go to bed at about the same time. Like I have a liturgy.
Yeah. Can you speak to that a bit? I've heard you share it a few times. It's awesome.
Oh yeah. Essentially, I found that like when I had a plan in my prayer, I actually did it. But when
Right.
I didn't, I didn't.
Right.
You know, because it's just like, what are you just supposed to do? And I know like how charismatics sort of, it's like, well, you just pray for an hour and you just, okay, speak in tongues, thank the Lord, sing a song. But I just found that the more structure I added, the more I wanted to, to basically, and for lack of a better term, but I kind of like this one, indulge in the structure. That's what it kind of feels like, But when I go to the gym and I know what day it is, okay,
Yeah.
this is back day. There's just some like, I got to work on back day because I haven't worked on back day. It's like, so back and buys. Okay, here we go. Chest
Yeah.
and tries is tomorrow. So
Yeah.
having a plan, there's just something about wanting to hit it. So I have a daily liturgy. I don't always do it, but I try to do it as much as I can. And typically I go on a walk.
Yep.
And I will pray the Lord's Prayer. And then I will, and it's about an hour walk. So Lord's Prayer, and it's like jazz. You play a chord, then you riff. Play a chord, then you riff. And then Psalm 23, and then Psalm 91, and then I end with Psalm 103 verses 2-5, and just work through the benefits.
Yes.
And so I'm able to like get in my personal, the Thanksgiving,
Yep.
obviously first, and then just think personal and the business and the ministry and all those good things.
Yep.
Prayers for my family and and immediate prayers. But yeah, it's just kind of been verses now that I haven't put to memory. So
Yep.
I'm still working on Psalm 91. I'm about halfway there.
Okay.
I memorized most of it, and then I sort of like forgot it a little bit.
Right.
So I typically like read Psalm 91 because there's just so much in there. But yeah,
It's more of a paraphrase.
Yeah,
Memorize
exactly.
the paraphrase.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just been just helpful. It's just a guide that I felt like I wanted to pray those prayers. If there's four verses that I want to pray over my life every day, I want to pray the way Jesus taught me to pray.
Yep.
I want to pray Psalm 23, Lord
Yep.
is my shepherd. And that just kind of ministers to my anxieties. Psalm 91, another one that ministers to my anxieties. And then Psalm 103 verses 2-5, which ministers to my anxieties.
Right.
So it's like the Lord's Prayer and then, David's prayers that ministered to his anxieties, essentially.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as a project-based person, you would undoubtedly have a few projects that were swings and misses. Can you tell us about like a project that you're surprised didn't work? Like it should have worked?
Yeah.
It was awesome and it just didn't happen?
Yeah. So my brother and I had a band called the Royal.
Yep.
I really thought it was going to work, and it just didn't work, Then, and I could point at a number of reasons why, but bottom line is it didn't work.
Right.
And then my brother-in-law, Brian, and myself launched a business with a couple other guys. I really thought it was going to work.
Right.
Didn't work. Yeah, just interesting things like that. And these have all been learning experiences.
Right.
I suppose there's things that I still want to do. I want to still do some music and potentially even do like some TV stuff or whatever, film stuff. But like I'm the kind of guy that I can get discouraged at the failure of a project for sure. But I've learned that we gotta work through those things. So,
right.
Yeah.
How did you determine this isn't working or this like
no money?
No money.
Yeah. If there's no money,
So
it's not working.
You hit a point where you're like, we can't keep self-financing this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they just become exactly. It's like, okay, this is obviously a passion project. It didn't work. It's not working for a number of reasons. It's probably a bit of me, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Wasn't the right time, wasn't the right place.
Yeah.
Like the other thing too is when you hit something and it's just working, then you realize, oh, maybe I should be doing. You know what I mean? So with Theos U, when we did it, it just works.
Yes.
And there's challenges, but the thing just works. Theos Seminary.
Yeah.
It just works.
Yeah.
So then you do those things, and now I find myself kind of coming back to in flirting with things that haven't worked before. And just going, okay, I got to take another stab at you.
Yeah. Maybe the self-finance runway is a little longer.
Yeah.
Maybe I could give 6 months to this and not 6 days.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So what would be a project, I mean, if you can share, that you're like, this might not work, but I still think someone's got to do it?
Yeah. So we're working on a TV show idea at the moment. Summer Heights High with Chris Lilly was one of my favorite shows ever. And it's essentially a guy who plays 3 characters, and it's mockumentary style.
Yep.
And so I had an idea about a church that's falling apart, and the pastor and his wife are kooks. She's like a chain-smoking Republican. He's like a people-pleasing Democrat. And they have a youth pastor who's always getting in trouble.
Okay.
Just with crazy ideas for the youth to get youth to come. He's like a TikToker and all that. And then they have like a brooding emo worship leader who's self-obsessed and needs lots of therapy and writes really crazy songs.
Okay.
And so the idea was that I play all of those
the
characters. Yeah. Yeah. The wife, the pastor, and essentially, so we wrote the pilot for it.
Amazing.
Myself, Brian Voss, and Michael Whittle.
Yeah.
And so we have a pilot, and we have options on funding. We're just trying to figure out whose money we're going to take. And I think we're going to shoot this proof of concept of the show. We'll shoot the pilot, and then from there, see if it's something that people would want to see more of. And so if we'd go the traditional route, see if anybody would want to pick it up, and if not, then maybe we see if anybody wants to crowdfund it. And if people are like, this is a terrible idea, well, then that's that.
That's awesome.
So that's,
well, sign me up, man.
Yeah, cool.
I'll put a little bit towards that. That sounds amazing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to have a go.
Yeah.
As my father-in-law would say.
Yeah.
So.
This is opening a can of worms type of question, but like, what role does humor play in speaking truth, communication?
Mm-hmm. Well, look, it doesn't, Chesterton called humor a language. It's all it is. It's like speaking German.
Right.
It's neither here, it's neither there. So it's just a mode. Some people use that mode. Some people speak German and some people don't.
Right.
So I speak German fluently, metaphorically.
Yes.
Of course. And
man, if you dropped into German right now, that'd be unbelievable.
I wish that would be awesome. Yes. I actually it's actually a goal of mine, a life goal to at least be able to read it so that I can interact with the reformers.
Right.
So I use quite a bit of humor because it's a language that I speak. I can't remember who said this, but somebody said that humor is like a rubber sword. You make the point without drawing blood. And so I'm a big proponent of the language. I think it's really necessary. Not everybody needs to speak it, but we do need the court jesters who love the kingdom, but are protected by the king. Their free speech is protected by the king, and they are allowed to lampoon, all of the goings on of the kingdom, and say what cannot be said, because what you're not allowed to say that's exactly why it needs to be said.
Right. Expose the reasons why you're not allowed to say it.
Totally. Yeah. And somebody needs to say it. And it's not everybody needs to or should, because they don't know how humor works, the timing. There's so many rules to humor. So I'm a big I love humor. I'm honestly, it's like I'm a huge believer in its power and its connectivity. And the thing about humor that people don't realize is that you can be saying really serious things with it.
Yes.
So I'm not opposed. I'm not talking about levity where we don't take things seriously. I take things so seriously that I use, German to say them.
Right.
So
what would be the thing that people most often get wrong about Theos U memes?
That there is necessarily a cohesive, so for example, I'm going to give you an example. We have this meme. So we have a bunch of themes at Thalassia Memes. And one of the themes is the one time that mom gets dragged out in front of the audience on Mother's Day to give a sermon.
Right.
And it's kind of unfair to her.
Right.
You know, because she's not speaking or preaching. But on Mother's Day now, she has to come up with a sermon.
Right.
In front of like hundreds or perhaps thousands of people.
Yeah. And represent 50% of the populace.
Yeah, totally.
Once out of 52 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we have this meme about, you know, the pastor having to listen to his wife preach.
Right.
And he's just, you know, he's beside himself. He's pulling his hair out. You know, it's like, you know, and so it'll take various forms. It'll be a guy falling asleep in a pew, and it's like, you know, mother, when your wife's preaching on a Sunday morning, you know, and we're just kind of teasing. We're not necessarily teasing the girls as much as teasing the reality that this is what we're doing to them.
Right.
It's unfair, you know, like, and because of that, these sermons suck.
Right.
You know, they're just bad.
Right.
Or maybe we're putting people in places where they shouldn't be just because they're because of their gender.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm all about, I love a really great sermon from a female, like from a woman preacher.
Absolutely.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But we can tell sometimes when it's just like, you're pushing this dude.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's killing everybody.
Right.
So there's that reality.
I love the paradox
it needs to be said.
of you get the obligatory Instagram post, she's my favorite preacher. But you only have her up once a year and she's free.
Right.
You know, she's available. She's there all the weeks.
Yeah, well, my
she's
wife
my favorite
preaches.
preacher.
She is absolutely incredible. Yeah. You're just saying that. This is BS.
Right.
We all know it.
Right.
It's unfair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but you know, I mean, obviously he has to be a husband in that moment, not the pastor, and he's compromised,
yes,
isn't he? So that's what Thalassia Memes is about. Those are, you know, that's what the heart of the memes is to make fun of some of the stupid things that we do without thinking about them, and just you know, and just to have a laugh.
Right. It's
funny.
Yes,
it is funny. I'm sorry, and you know, I've noticed, like with Thalassia Memes, there will always be a meme that you can find a meme that'll tick you off.
Right.
Because I've found that everybody, including the people who don't think that that wasn't funny. It's not funny because it's hurting you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's offended you, but you laugh at things that offend
something.
Other people all the time.
Yes.
You know, it just wasn't your thing that you're offended at when you were laughing at that other joke that I made.
Right.
Because this person over here was offended. You know what I mean? Right. How dare you say that about college students? You know what I mean? It's like, so I think people need to learn that when it's your turn to be hit, some days you're the pigeon and some days you're the statue.
Right.
You know, and when it's your day to be the statue, don't complain.
Right.
Just laugh and go, that is actually funny. That is a caricature
of
what I'm like.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we're equal offenders at Thalassia Memes.
Yes.
You know, we're committed. We trash each other, you know, and really make fun of each other. I get trashed all the time on the meme page.
Right.
And I love it because it's funny.
Right.
You know, it's not the truth.
Right.
But the caricature is the truth.
Right.
And there could be an element. This could be a perception. You know what I mean? It's funny.
Yes.
And even if it is true, maybe some of it is true.
Yeah.
And it's, you know,
it's still funny.
It's still funny. Yeah.
And it's like it buys you more credit to keep going hard.
Absolutely.
When you can be laughed at.
You have, exactly. You are. I had a prof at Bible college. He's a pastor now, of a church in Portland, Oregon called Manna House, and his name's Mark Estes. Mm-hmm. And he had this rule when he'd open up his class at the beginning of the semester. He'd say, "I have a couple of rules," and so he'd go through his rules. And one of his rules are, "You are not God. You will be mocked."
That's so good.
Yeah. And so he's like, you know, you're going to get made fun of in this class. I will make fun of you.
Wow.
You are not God. You will be mocked. Yeah.
Man,
and
that's good.
I just loved it. It's maturing. Right? It's like, grow up.
Yeah.
People who don't like our meme page, we block them. We send them to meme jail.
Yeah.
And inevitably, you know, they always want to be back on the meme page.
They were so angry, but they want to be back.
Yeah. And our fans now, if somebody says something, like they come on, it's like a new guy, he comes on the meme page. There's like 30,000 people that follow the meme page. They come on the meme page and somebody's complaining. This meme is so insensitive. all of our
Everyone's
fans
jail,
will be
jail,
commenting
jail,
jail,
jail.
jail. Yeah, exactly.
We become the mob.
Yeah, exactly.
Jail.
It's so good. And so it's just fun. It's like, this is a meme page. Calm down.
Right.
Yeah, I know it's a meme page, but people are being hurt. No, you're being hurt. You're taking offense for somebody. Like, calm down. So I'm an educator.
Yes.
So as an educator, I'm educating people.
Right.
And the meme page is how I'm teaching Christians to stop being so ridiculous.
Right.
Don't get upset at Ned Flanders.
Right.
Laugh at Ned Flanders.
Yes.
Because he is a caricature, and people in your the world's making fun of us. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Because some of us are like that.
Yeah.
And even if we are, it's kind of funny.
Yes. And there might be things that we will embrace and say, even though it's funny, still going to do it.
Totally.
I mean,
like the Christian board games.
Yes. Yeah.
Like when Todd and Chad or whatever the kids' names were, they were playing like Road to Jerusalem. Right. I'm going, that's totally a game I'd play.
Because exactly.
Totally. I went to a Christian school.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I was like the most sheltered person ever. And I would shelter my kids. I'd make my kids play Road to Jerusalem as well.
Absolutely.
But it's still so weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's funny because we've used other tools over the years, like bringing in the power team.
Yeah.
That's something that churches in mass went, this will help us communicate a message. Yeah. Like somehow blowing up a hot water bottle is going to help everyone come to Christ, but don't use humor. Yeah. That's too far.
Or the way the way that Flanders is always kind of masking his humanity by being super upbeat.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we all know that guy.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the Christian thing. We play this game. We're like, the joy of the Lord is my strength. I'm just walking in victory. And it's like, BS. It's like, but that's the caricature. And it's a great caricature. And so we, rather than being offended at things, we need to laugh at things.
Absolutely.
Chesterton said that the test of any great religion is that it can be mocked.
Amazing.
Christianity should count it a blessing when we're mocked.
I mean, Christianity is probably the only one that is still allowed to be.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's real.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question that I think could be a whole other episode in and of itself. But you said something before, you're banking on millennials and Gen Z wanting something different than the generation past. If you could kind of lay out as you see things, you interact with young people all over the world, really. Give me like a best case scenario for Gen Z and like the sobering worst case scenario, like some of the strengths that exist there and then some of the underlying weaknesses that you think are dangers.
One more time, sorry.
Just for Gen Z, best case scenario would be, here's the things they want and desire and have potential for. Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Like, what's the ceiling? What's the floor as you see it? I mean, you don't know everything, but as you interact with young people.
Yeah, I think that the best case scenario for Gen Z is to become dependable, hardworking, educated, young people who are more rational than they are emotional. And fortune kind of favors the bold. I think that God favors the bold, to be quite honest.
Right.
And so make bold decisions, but your peers are lazy and your peers get all of their education from TikTok and they're about an inch deep and a mile wide.
Yep.
And so Gen Z, the stars in Gen Z will fight those trends.
Right.
And they will become deep, grounded, and you'll shine like stars in the heavens.
Right.
You'll be the absolute opposite of your peers if you become somebody who can dabble in the long form rather than in just the short form. Somebody who can read for long extended periods of time rather than somebody who just needs to swipe continually. Right. And there's nothing, all these studies about the phone's messing our brains up in the media, and I think that's just a lot of nonsense.
Right.
Like everything, life changes, life adapts.
Yes.
people would have been saying that about books when they came out. You know,
Totally.
books are just ruining your comics are ruining
Yeah.
your, you know, it's like, it's always something ruining.
Yes.
You know, the young people are always this and that way. The old people are always this and that way. It's like a generational thing. But if Gen Z could just become insanely dependable, lots of responsibility, and dabble in the long form and go deep, they're going to be rewarded greatly. And the worst thing that could possibly happen is that you miss what's been happening on TikTok.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. And worst case scenario, if we don't do that, like where I've heard you talk at times about, people talk, I've got more confidence than ever. The next generation is this or that. And you're maybe not quite so convinced by the signs you see.
Yeah. I think that Gen Z is, because they have social media, they've kind of there are some postures of social media, right? There's the posture in social media is typically it's overconfidence, right? And so they say a lot of dumb things. All of Gen Z will be a suicide-free generation.
Right.
It's like, no, it won't be.
Right.
So come up with better slogans.
Right.
You know what I mean? Be more helpful.
Yeah.
Get away from your marketing bent and be come back to reality.
Right.
Because you're not helping anybody by saying things like that. All of California will be saved. Nope, it won't.
Yeah. The poor you will always have among you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, we're just trying to set, if you shoot for the moon, you might hit the stars.
Yeah.
We're just trying to have faith here. We're just trying to like believe God for big things. Yes, believe God for big things, but like have a strategy.
Yes.
Like maybe start with like being a part of a local church,
Right.
But anyways, I think that, Gen Z, they tend to talk a lot and they don't tend to know a lot.
Right.
And it's not their turn to talk. It's their turn to listen.
Right.
And stop problematizing boomers.
Right. Easy target to make that who you're hitting when they're not actually on your form of media that you're hitting them on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So it's like, I will listen to anybody. I will listen to Gen Z. I'll listen to a boomer. I'll listen to whoever, because I want to learn and grow.
Yeah.
But overwhelmingly, they just tend to not have much substance.
Right.
And so they're not worth listening to. Become somebody worth listening to and I'll listen to you.
Right.
It's that easy.
How's the church bear responsibility in that?
Discipling them well. Calling them to local churches.
Yeah.
Calling them out of parachurch organizations where they just surf and have fun and, date girls.
Right.
So it's like, and I'm not, look, I think there's a time and a season to go to Bible college, and I have nothing against YWAM or anything like that. YWAM's great. All that stuff, that's great. But you need some formal training at some point.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to become a person of depth. Don't just be so flash in the pan in all marketing.
Right.
Like thirst trap marketing. It's like, we don't need more of that. We have lots of that.
Right.
And like, so these, don't be inch deep, mile wide. Be somebody of substance.
Right. And that process of discipleship, a lot of people talk discipleship and they immediately go towards, here's 8 or 10 or 12 spiritual disciplines that you can do. Here's a book about it or a class about it. Mm-hmm. Do you think that defines discipleship well, or what's the missing piece?
Yeah. I mean, discipleship, so spiritual maturity doesn't happen outside the context of relationship. So you need people that will call you on your crap and then hold your feet to the fire. Right. So that's the spiritual maturity element, right? Yeah. And that is one piece of that pie. You also need to grow your mind.
Right.
And your mind needs to be fed. And you need to, love the Lord with all your mind, Jesus added.
Yeah.
And Romans 12, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. So, there's formal training, some sort of what I mean by formal training is long form.
Yeah.
Whether it be like a Theos U subscription and go through courses and read the books, do the readings, go to Theos seminary and read the books.
Right.
Be familiar with the major talking heads on any given thing.
Yeah.
don't plagiarize a YouTube talk
Right.
and that be the extent of your study.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's what I mean by, discipleship is long form. There's the groups, but there's also the mind.
Right.
There's the relationships and the context of relationship, and but there's also like, that it's head and heart.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Together.
The other day I was talking to one of my sons. He's in grade 6. It was like day 3 of the school year, and he's a little down. I'm like, "What's up, dude?" He goes, "Oh, I thought I was going to love grade 6 because I felt like I already knew all the stuff we were going to do, but this teacher seems like she's trying to teach us new stuff."
Yeah, right.
And he had a little down moment. He's like, "Man, it's going to be harder than I thought." So I had to reframe it, and by the end, he's like, "Ooh, I'm excited for grade 6. I'm going to learn lots of new stuff." But I think a lot of times we try to almost water it down to that level of expectation. We want you to be excited on day 3 of this discipleship journey, so you already know everything.
Yeah.
Just follow the things you already wanted to do. You wanted to rest more, that's what God wants for you.
Yeah.
And you wanted to, just accept yourself for who you are. God also feels that way.
Yeah, there's a pastor that said, like, I've had to become today in our pastor's session. And he said, we're doing a Q&A, and he was talking about how he had to be an apologist now. And he was just kind of like, I feel like I have to be an apologist now. I'm like, yes, you do.
Yes.
You do have to be an apologist now. You have to read some books.
Yep.
You have to be familiar with what's happening. The game has changed.
Yeah.
There's ideologies underneath the questions and underneath the behavior. And you're never going to understand. You'll never understand the questions or the behaviors if you don't understand the motivators.
Right. Love it.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Of course.